Hello? Yes. Good day once again. My name's Gerry Conlon, and I'm an Aussie from Western Australia, and I'm working in the mission of Kenya. And Australia is called the land down under, and before I joined the missionaries, I was a mining engineer for 15 years, working mainly underground. And so I've really come from down under. And I kept telling God, until the age of 35 when I joined, I kept telling him I wasn't good enough to be a priest. So I'm not sure what you're going to think. But, Australia was colonized by convicts. They were exporting prisoners from England to an island to Australia. So I'm not sure what that makes me if I've been exported to Kenya. Maybe I'm not good enough to be a convict. After Mass, I'll be in the foyer, happy to talk about Kenya a bit more, so I won't keep you too long during the homily. But let's focus, first of all, on this beautiful feast of the Ascension, because it's very important. I don't know whether you've heard the story of a teacher talking to her class about the Ascension, about going into heaven and things like that. And she said, "Does anyone know before you go to heaven what's got to happen?" And little Johnny puts his hand up and says, "You got to be dead." But before the Ascension, Jesus rose from the dead. And for me, the Feast of the Ascension highlights three key elements of our lives. One is preparation, one is departure, and one is community. And I think they follow in that order. And if you think about yourselves as parents, and perhaps as children, our parents developed and prepared us for many occasions of departure in our lives. The first one being when we went to school for the first time. And probably some of you can remember hanging on to mum and dad's hand for fear. You didn't want mum and dad to leave and push us into the school. But eventually we had that courage to let go, and eventually we enjoyed our time away from mum and dad, perhaps because we knew that mum and dad would still be waiting for us. And then, of course, throughout life, we go to high school, we go to university. Sometimes by the time we finish teenage years, we're happy to run away from mum and dad until we have to do our own washing and cooking. Then we come home. There's that sense of preparation. So how prepared are we for that moment when perhaps we're going to face a crisis in our lives? It's not just about dying, but about the crises we face in our lives. I remember one day my little cousin was 14 and he died of cystic fibrosis, and I can remember the stress and the sadness of his mum and dad, my uncle and auntie, and it was a traumatic moment to lose your own 14-year-old son, even though they knew for the previous 11 or 12 years that one day he's going to go from us very soon. And how many other crises do parents especially face, and children face if their parents die? How do we face those moments when there's a departure in our lives? And this is why we need to prepare ourselves through strong community life. And that's the third element that I want to talk about today, the importance of community. First of all, the community of family, then the community of our neighborhood, the community of our church, and the community of our nation. And even now, as we see the wonderful support given by many countries surrounding Ukraine, especially the Polish people, how they're supporting and receiving so many people from Ukraine, giving them courage, giving them hope. And so as Christ was taken away or went away to heaven from the disciples, they realized that we have to build community. We have to keep alive the presence of Christ in our world through our actions and through our love for each other and for other people in need. And it fits in very well with my life as a missionary, because in Kenya we are building community. We are preparing people for the day when we're not going to be there, when the Canadians can no longer support the mission in Kenya. We're struggling to try and develop self-reliance amongst ourselves as the Oblate Kenya mission, because we know one day, sadly, so many of our oblates are dying as they get older and older, and very few people are joining the oblates here in Canada. Please God, that will change. But in the short term, we are supported by beautiful people like yourselves. I know some of you may already be MAMI members, and today my main focus is to invite you to become part of this MAMI family, Missionary Associates of Mary Immaculate. And without the help of those missionary partnership with MAMI, we could not have done so many good things in Kenya during the last 25 years. The thing that stands out for me, two things. When Father Ken Forster from Canada went there as the first mission superior with Father Bill Stang and other oblates, they set a rule: shilingi qua shilingi, dollar for dollar. We will help you build your projects. Whatever you think is important to your community, we will help you, but you have to do half the work. And so that really set a foundation that people did not become dependent on us, but started to dig deep within themselves. And yes, they struggled to raise the money needed. They did what they could at the time and gradually improved their projects over time. Instead of we just coming in and giving everything to them, they would have become lazy and dependent. And this is, I think, parents also struggle sometimes when their children start to become teenagers, and you start to, hey, you need to contribute to this family too. Huh? You need to clean your room, you need to help with the chores around the house. And it's part of helping them to become ready for your departure as parents, or their departure from the family home. We have to be tough sometimes. But the end result is that they develop a great sense, the people of Kenya have developed a great sense of, we can do something. Huh? As Barack Obama used to say, can we do it? Yes, we can. And it's a great message that the Kenyan people have been able to do. One of the projects that they requested was a problem with schools, because up until the year 2000, 2001, every student going to high school after year 8 had to go to boarding schools, because that was the only option. And so many families could not afford boarding school, and the Oblates assisted them to build the first day secondary school, certainly in that half of Kenya. And the governor of Meru County was there last Sunday at the celebration, and he appreciated the Oblates for what they did in not only pushing people to be shilingi qua shilingi, dollar for dollar, but also the implementation of that first day secondary school, because suddenly all the families could afford to send their kids to high school up to year 12. So now we have, instead of 60% of kids going to year 12, now we have more than 95%. And that's a great gift for Kenya, because with education, people can make better decisions and do more things to help build up that whole nation. So that's something that you can be proud of as mission partners here in Canada. It was your donations and your generosity that has allowed that first day school to be created. And now there are literally hundreds of day secondary schools all over Kenya because of that one initiative. I'll just tell you a quick story of one of the things we do is youth work. And for 5 years I was in the parish on top of Mount Kenya, our first parish. Now we have 4 parishes and 2 houses of formation for the young men who are joining us to take over the mission when I'm too old, which won't be too long. And anyway, when they asked me to be treasurer, I said no. Then they asked me again, I said no. And then they asked me again, I said okay. And I was saying no because I thought, local people, Africans at least, should take responsibility. But they were asking me because it's not easy to find people who can be trusted with money. Hopefully I can be. And one of the things I love as being with my engineering experience is that I love getting involved with the projects to make sure that they're efficient, expandable in the future, instead of just building something and then when you need to make it bigger, you've got to break down half of what you've already spent. So we're building things that can be expanded, that are efficient, and also watching the contractors who are doing the construction to make sure that everything is done properly. So that's one of my gifts that I can share as an engineer. But when I left the parish, I was really heavily involved with the youth. And one of the things I noticed when I came to Nairobi, to the head office, if you like, I noticed that many of our young people from our 4 parishes were living and working and going to university in Nairobi. So we gathered them together and created an Oblate youth group in Nairobi. And it's been really fulfilling for me to spend time with them every month. And we have a big WhatsApp group and we send encouragement. And, sometimes these young people are stuck in a corner. Their parents maybe don't have any money to help them pay all the fees, or there's a drought and the parents don't have money for food or rent. So sometimes we help each other. I'm encouraging them as a youth group to dig deep and help each other when they're in trouble, but sometimes it's too big. So they turn to me as the chaplain for the group and, help them with $20 here or $50 there, because if they don't have the money to do the exam, that means all the money they've invested for the previous semester is wasted. Their rent, their food, their tuition fees. So then just to help them get through. And I say to them, look, this is a loan. When you get a chance, pay us back, because we only have a certain amount of money. If you take it, then there's less for other people. And they're very good. I've been really impressed and inspired by their courage and their struggles to live simply and to pay back when they've been assisted. So we're not just giving handouts, we're giving a hand up, and also encouraging them to see it as that they're going to make a contribution later on when they're able to do so. But there was one family that really challenged me about our own Christian beliefs. We talk about forgiveness. This was a family where the gentleman, the husband, was misbehaving, became an alcoholic, and basically abandoned the family, 5 boys and mum. So the mother did her best, and George, who's the oldest son, he was still going through high school when I arrived, and I helped him one day because he'd been kicked out of school because the school fees had not been paid past a certain point. So I gave him some money. Then a week later, I discovered he's still not back in school, and I said, hey, what's going on? I gave you money to get back to school. And I was getting a bit annoyed, and he said, but Father, my younger brother was also kicked out of school because he didn't have enough fees. So I gave the money you gave me, I used to help him get back to school. So then I felt a bit ashamed, and so I gave him more money. And then someone came and said, hey, Father, don't give money to George because he stole something from the school. And my first reaction was, how dare he steal from the school, And then, I started to realize when you're pushed into a corner, you don't have money, the family's struggling, dad is not there, mum is doing her best. Sometimes people are driven to make desperate decisions. They thought that this was a way of trying to help get the family through a crisis. And this is what I'm trying to prevent in Nairobi, because these young people, if they run out of money, they can turn to drugs, turn to stealing. The women sometimes go to prostitution, just desperate to sustain themselves and finish their university or pay their rent. So this is where we can chip in and help them overcome these tight spots in their lives. And I'm trying to get the youth to be supporting each other, not just relying on us as oblates and you people as generous benefactors here in Canada. So it's been a learning curve for me. the poor people have been teaching me what it means to be a Christian. So many of the young people, they get a chance to get a job, but instead of looking after themselves, they give most of the money back to the family so that the family can also survive and other kids can go to school. So they're wonderful people, and we're just there to empower them so that they can transform that country into something good. So part of my message today is to say thank you for all the generosity. I know you're not just contributing, some of you are contributing to the Oblates, but many of you are contributing to other religious congregations who are doing great work around the world. And the Oblates are also focused up in the north of Canada, and many other, Father Ken was involved with people on drugs in Vancouver and things like that. So we're not just focused overseas, but we're focused also in Canada, helping people in need. And if you sign up to be a MAMI member, which I hope you will, we need your prayers. If you have something to share financially, that's great. But if you don't, just even your prayers and your presence as a member of MAMI is a great encouragement to us when times get tough in the mission. So thank you very much for listening, and God bless you all and your families.